The winds of rebellion are sweeping across Eastern Europe once again. This time, it isn't Moscow making the loudest noise but Minsk, the capital of Belarus. A country long seen as a loyal satellite of Moscow under the iron grip of Alexander Lukashenko, suddenly finds itself at the center of mutiny, chaos, and street-level rage. But the real twist in this story is not just the uprising, it's the shocking role of Vladimir Putin, who allegedly turned on his longtime ally in a desperate attempt to reassert control over a crumbling empire. Belarus, the Kremlin's last loyal ally. For decades, Belarus has been described as Russia's closest partner in Europe. Lukashenko, often called Europe's last dictator, survived sanctions, protests, and Western isolation only because Putin kept him afloat with money, oil, and military protection. But loyalty in geopolitics is fragile. As Russia's war in Ukraine dragged on and Moscow faced setbacks, Putin began demanding more from Lukashenko: more troops, more bases, more weapons, and more loyalty. Lukashenko resisted. He feared that throwing Belarusian soldiers into Ukraine would inflame his already angry population. Protests had nearly toppled him in 2020, and only Russian backing saved him then. So he walked a tightrope, supporting Putin politically but refusing to risk his own throne by sending Belarusians to die in Ukraine. The breaking point: Putin's betrayal. Reports from intelligence sources claim that Putin recently moved to undermine Lukashenko directly. Russian operatives began contacting Belarusian security chiefs, military commanders, and even opposition groups. Moscow allegedly tried to orchestrate a controlled mutiny, hoping to either force Lukashenko to submit or replace him with a figure more obedient to the Kremlin. This was a shocking betrayal. Lukashenko had long trusted Putin to keep him in power, but suddenly he found the same Kremlin knives pointed at his back. The streets of Minsk explode. When rumors of Putin's meddling spread, it was like striking a match in dry grass. Crowds flooded the streets of Minsk, Grodno, and Brest. Protesters shouted not only against Lukashenko's corruption and brutality but also against Putin's interference. Slogans like, "No Kremlin rule," and "Belarus belongs to us," rang out, uniting pro-democracy activists, workers, and even disillusioned police officers. Unlike past protests, this movement wasn't just about Lukashenko. It was about rejecting Russian domination altogether. For the first time, a clear anti-Moscow sentiment has taken root in Belarus. Lukashenko's desperate gamble. Cornered and betrayed, Lukashenko tried to play both sides. He declared that Putin had gone too far and accused foreign powers, carefully avoiding naming Russia, of destabilizing Belarus. At the same time, he unleashed riot police and the feared KGB to crush protests. But the gamble isn't working. Videos of brutal crackdowns only fueled more anger. Even members of the Belarusian military began refusing orders, with some units reportedly defecting to protect civilians. Why this matters for Putin? For Putin, this mutiny is disastrous. The Kremlin cannot afford another ally slipping away while its war in Ukraine falters. Losing Belarus would mean losing a strategic buffer zone, key supply lines, and a major symbolic victory for the West. Worse, it would show that Putin is no longer able to control his own loyal dictators. The world watches in shock. The man who has spent decades projecting power and loyalty in his sphere of influence has now triggered a rebellion in the very country that once leaned on him the most. The story of Belarus's mutiny doesn't end with betrayal. It is quickly becoming a wider crisis that threatens to reshape the region. From the heart of Minsk to the borders with Poland and Lithuania, protests are growing louder, and the world is asking, can Lukashenko survive? Or has Putin accidentally destroyed his last stronghold in Europe? Massive protests sweep the nation. What began as scattered protests has now snowballed into the largest anti-government movement Belarus has ever seen. Tens of thousands march daily, waving the banned red and white opposition flag. Factory workers have gone on strike. University students occupy campuses. Women's groups lead chants demanding freedom, echoing the spirit of Ukraine's maiden revolution. Videos flooding social media show protesters tearing down statues of Soviet leaders, confronting police, and demanding not just Lukashenko's resignation but also the withdrawal of Russian influence. Lukashenko turns on Putin publicly. In an unprecedented move, Lukashenko addressed the nation and accused, outside manipulation, of trying to overthrow Belarus. Though he avoided naming Putin directly, insiders confirm that his anger is squarely aimed at Moscow. He has reportedly purged several pro-Russian officials from his inner circle and ordered security forces to arrest Russian operatives caught meddling in Belarusian affairs. This is a turning point. For the first time, the dictator who owed his survival to Putin has dared to break with the Kremlin publicly. The Kremlin's dilemma. Putin now faces a nightmare scenario. If he abandons Lukashenko, Belarus could fall into the hands of pro-Western forces, joining Ukraine, Poland, and the Baltics in resisting Moscow. But if he tries to intervene militarily, he risks another bloody quagmire on top of the Ukraine war. Russia's resources are already stretched thin, and its people are weary of endless conflict. The question for Putin is simple but deadly: is Belarus worth another war? Western response: a golden opportunity. Meanwhile, the West smells opportunity. The European Union and NATO countries bordering Belarus are openly encouraging protesters, offering asylum to defectors, and hinting at sanctions if Lukashenko cracks down violently. For years, Belarus was seen as untouchable because of Russian protection. Now, with Putin distracted and weakened, the West may finally help Belarus break free. Protests spread beyond Belarus. The unrest in Belarus is inspiring others. In Russia itself, opposition groups are seizing on the chaos to call for new demonstrations. If Belarusians can rise against dictatorship and Moscow's interference, so can we, one Russian activist declared on Telegram. Protests in St. Petersburg and Moscow, though smaller, show that Putin's grip at home is also under pressure. The road ahead: mutiny or revolution? What happens next in Belarus could go in several directions. 1. Total revolution. If protests keep growing, Lukashenko may be forced to resign, and Belarus could pivot westward. 2. Putin strikes back. Moscow could send troops or mercenaries to crush dissent, effectively annexing Belarus. 3. Prolonged chaos. A stalemate between protesters, Lukashenko, and Russian influence could drag Belarus into years of instability. Whatever the outcome, one truth is undeniable: the old order in Belarus is dead. The myth of Putin's unshakable power over his allies has shattered. A new dawn for Belarus. For ordinary Belarusians, this is a moment of both fear and hope. Fear of repression, war, and Russian invasion, but hope for real independence and freedom. Crowds chanting, "Long live Belarus!" believe that this mutiny is not just about politics but about finally breaking chains that have bound the nation for decades. As the sun sets over Minsk, the fires of protest burn brighter. Whether Lukashenko falls tomorrow or months from now, one thing is clear: Putin's betrayal has lit a fuse he may not be able to extinguish. Final words. The mutiny in Belarus is more than just another crisis in Eastern Europe, it's a seismic event that could reshape the balance of power. By turning on Lukashenko, Putin may have made his greatest mistake yet. Protests everywhere, a dictator cornered, and a people rising: this is history unfolding in real time.